All right, welcome to the Mat Time podcast. We are previewing UFC 238, Cejudo versus Moraes. I'm Brad. I'm here with Brock, Nick, and Zach. And we're going to preview the card here for you, starting with Cejudo versus Moraes. Nick, you want to start with that?
Yeah, honestly, I've picked Moraes all week and pretty much since this fight got announced, but I do have to just take back for a minute to realize that this is a really good fight on paper. This is honestly like a really close fight. I think if it doesn't end early like Cejudo's last fight, we're in for a really good fight. It possibly could be like a 5-round barn burner. Both guys are red hot right now. Moraes, he's on a 3-fight winning streak that I know of with Aljamain Sterling knockout, the Jimmy Rivera knockout, and then submitting Rafael Assunção, his only loss. And then obviously we know Cejudo coming off of the win against TJ Dillashaw. So I definitely
And the win off of DJ.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can't forget that. That's probably a bigger deal than the Dillashaw fight.
Probably is. I
agree.
mean, you know,
The legacy behind DJ, I feel like, was more cemented beforehand. Like, there was almost... Because he had beat him before, everybody had already counted him out, and they're like, oh, it's DJ. You know, there's no way that anyone's going to beat him at this point. They didn't see anyone at 25 as a real threat.
do you think DJ took that fight off?
No,
I think he was definitely
DJ
still
got
injured.
Got hurt during the fight, and I think it was a hell of a close fight that I want to see again.
What I mean, though, is, you know, what Brock just said is that DJ's legacy was already kind of cemented. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you think he got complacent in some of those later fights?
I don't think that that's what it was. I think that in that Cejudo fight, you got to remember, he was coming off that, I think, labrum surgery, so his shoulder was not 100% in my opinion, and it showed throughout the fight. I mean, that's how I saw it. But I don't want to say that the only reason Cejudo beat him was because he came in injured, because I'm not sure how it would have went either way. But I do think it is a factor that DJ didn't come in 100%, and I think he came back too soon, even though he was out for like 9 months.
Right. But you still, you know, in Cejudo...
And you still can't knock Cejudo because he's gotten
No, for sure. And
10 times better
example,
every time he's fought.
To your
gets the
point
rub.
earlier, though, I think with any other champion or fighter, you see that it weighs on them, and they do maybe take fights off or look past people and stuff like that. And with any other fighter, I think it could be a fair thing to say. But I think DJ's shown that he approaches a fight in such a professional way, and he comes at it with Matt Hume, one of the best in the game.
So, let me ask you this.
He was prepared as he was prepared.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Yeah,
fight.
yeah. I'm not saying that he's not. I'm just kind of trying to play devil's advocate a little bit and just, you know, Cormier always talks about getting the rub. You know, when you fight a guy who is the best like DJ is, you know, Cejudo got that rub the first time around, so he definitely came in better the next time.
Yeah.
He's fought him again since then and put on a great show, and you know, so we could definitely see a much more improved Cejudo just from the experience he's gotten in those last few fights. Nick, I wanted to ask you though, in regards to Moraes, his last 3 fights all ended in the first round.
Yeah.
You know, quickly. What happens, you think, if this fight gets dragged into deep water? You know, because I picture Cejudo, a victory for Cejudo. Granted, he clipped TJ, and that's how he won that fight. So his hands and his striking has come along. But you know what Brock was kind of talking about earlier is the real road to victory is most likely his wrestling. You know, he's a gold medalist. That's what, when things go bad, when you get tired, if you get clipped or something like that,
That's
you go
your
back
go-to.
to. That's what his go-to is going to be.
Right, that's
So,
his plan B.
If this fight does get dragged into deep water because we see Cejudo holding Moraes down and just kind of ground and pound him a little bit, because I think Moraes will be able to survive on the bottom. But what happens with his gas tank come round 3, 4, 5?
Yeah, that's a really big question because we haven't seen the gas tank in Moraes' UFC fights. All of them have ended early. If you want to see his gas tank, you look back at his previous fights in the World Series of Fighting and outside of the UFC. And
He has 2 5-round decision wins in the World Series of Fighting
right?
while he was defending his title.
who are they?
Josh Hill's one of them.
Okay,
The other is right here. It's Josh Reddinghouse.
Won a decision against both of those. He won the championship against Josh Reddinghouse. and it was a defense against Josh Hill that both went to 5 rounds, both unanimous decisions. But that's not the caliber
of Henry Cejudo, and
right.
he definitely didn't face the type of challenge that he will with Cejudo, where he did go 5 rounds in those fights. Maybe that proves he does have cardio, but does he have get wrestled for 5 rounds cardio?
Does he have fighting from adversity?
Yeah,
cardio.
Fight on the bottom. We've
right.
seen so many world beaters come into the UFC, and they look like they're going to run through everybody. Anthony Johnson's a good example.
Right.
He came into that DC fight. I'm not saying nobody was picking DC, but almost everybody I saw was like, Anthony Johnson's going to knock him out. He's going to beat him.
Anthony Johnson's just come off that knockout of Glover where he knocked his tooth into the 3rd row.
So he goes into that fight, and as soon as he gets put on the bottom for a couple minutes against DC, he was mentally defeated. You could see it on his face.
He wanted out.
It stuck with him into the
that rear
second
naked
fight.
choke was a gift.
Yeah,
it stuck with him into the
absolutely.
second fight.
Yeah. So with Moraes, I don't see something like that happening. It could happen. That's really why we love this sport, is because we have so many questions going into a close fight on paper like this. If you want an immediate prediction from me, with both their bodies of work, I respect Moraes a little more, and the fact that he's actually a true bantamweight and not coming up from flyweight, I do have him taken. I would say a closer 5-round decision, not something like it comes down to the final round, but I do definitely think Cejudo's going to take some rounds, but I see Moraes taking a 5-rounder.
So you see, how do you picture him being able to pull that off? With what? His striking and foot movement?
Yeah, I do believe he'll be able to stay moving and not be taken down so often, and maybe not let Cejudo secure position, because even in Cejudo's impressive wrestling performances against DJ was a good example. He couldn't really keep him down. He did hold him down for brief moments of certain rounds, but he couldn't really establish his offense, couldn't establish the ground and pound. Mm-hmm. And we know, I think we know for sure that he's not going to submit Moraes. So
I agree.
Yeah. I definitely see a decision either way, unless I know Cejudo has the firepower in his hands. We saw it, and Moraes definitely has firepower. But yeah, I see a 5-rounder either way.
What about you, Brock?
I believe that Cejudo is going to be able to pull out a 5-round decision, but I do think that they're both going to be pushed to the limit. I think if it comes to standing on the feet, you have Cejudo, the guy who's now, it seems like every fight for the last, 4 or 5 fights now, he's gotten exponentially better as a martial artist, as a whole mixed martial artist, and as a striker specifically. He has...
I like the stance he's developed.
He's come out and he's developed more of like a wide, long stance.
Yeah.
More of a karate stance.
Yeah,
Almost.
that fight against Wilson Hayes, I mean, I have a lot of respect for the way he handled it, because he had back-to-back losses against DJ and then Joseph Benavidez. Mm-hmm. He responded like a true champion does. That's why I always have respect for him, is because he came back from that fight against Benavidez to the fight against Wilson Hayes, 2 different people.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. He came in like a new guy, and he's only gotten better. So it's seeing him progress all the way up to the DJ fight, into the TJ fight, even though we didn't really get to see much out of the TJ fight. I feel like he's clearly doing something right, whether it's mentally something's changed with him or his training is changed, or I know he's been doing a lot of like high tech, like science based training. Like I saw he's doing it's like basically like little games, and they're like throwing frisbees at him.
Hand-eye coordination
head
stuff,
movement, hand-eye coordination,
pattern recognition, and whatnot.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of
kind of see
footwork,
Lomachenko doing.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and I've never been able to do something like that, so I don't know like what its true benefits are, or if it would help me specifically or anybody really. But I think that if it wasn't working, he wouldn't be doing it. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's maybe like a new thing that might be giving him an edge, that's making his striking better. Because before that Wilson Hayes fight, I wouldn't necessarily have been like impressed by his striking. I would have called it like average or slightly above average.
Okay.
But I think now he's to a point where he can strike. He's still got to worry about the power, though, of Moraes, because he might, in my opinion, he's one of the hardest hitting 35-pounders, because he can just plant his legs and swing. I think nobody else is able to plant and throw a punch like him at 35, besides maybe TJ. But considering now he's out of the picture, he might have one of the hardest punches at that weight, besides maybe Cejudo. But
you think Cejudo can edge out a 5-round decision?
I think he's going to be able to... I don't think he's going to wrestle him the whole time, but I think he's going to be able to have a good mix of striking, takedown, try to hold him down as long as he can, make that a threat, start striking again, and just continually have the threat of the takedown. Yeah, I don't think he can hold him there, and I really don't think he's going to submit him, but I think he's going to do just enough to win the fight.
I absolutely respect that possibility. I'm not ruling that out at all. I definitely respect that.
Because Moraes is what you said with in regards to Moraes' power about how he has to plant.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It seems to me, at least, from my...
He loads up a little bit to throw that shot, to generate that type of power. And
Cejudo is extremely fast.
Right. Like he's going to circle quick. Off, and he's going to use his jab. And if he's able to press Moraes up against the cage or, hold him down, hit a takedown or two to win the round, I could see him edging it out. And I've gone back and forth in this fight all week, but...
Yeah, me too.
As of this moment, right now, as we record this, I see Cejudo by decision. Which also brings me to, currently right now, Cejudo is the underdog for this fight.
Which, it's really interesting to me.
A little
because
bit,
of what he's done.
Yeah.
I would say the only reason I would maybe see that is because it is at 35. And considering, he doesn't really necessarily... At least I don't think he has...
Moraes is sucking to get to 35? Versus Cejudo, who's probably not doing anything.
Well, I don't know if he's really... I don't know if he's killing himself. Honestly, I'm not too sure. I don't know about it. But I think, if anything, it's going to benefit Cejudo to be at 35. I think if it was at 25, I'd still give it to Cejudo. But being at 35, it makes it a little tougher. Because when they go to replenish, I feel like Moraes is going to be way bigger because he's naturally bigger.
Sure.
Versus Cejudo might stay at 140, but then we might see Moraes at 150, 155.
I would assume he'd be around 150. Yeah,
because I just feel like he fills out more and he's a lot bigger. Sure. But you have to consider that Cejudo is, he's an Olympic champion wrestler, and he just has that squeeze that might be able to hold Moraes down. But again, I'm not sure, and I've been contemplating it all week.
That's what makes it such a good fight.
Moraes
It is a great fight. And that's why it's almost a pick-em. Right now Moraes is sitting at a minus 118 favorite over Cejudo's plus 100 underdog.
And with my pick of Moraes, if it got any more lopsided, it has hit me at a favorite, I wouldn't bet it.
Yeah, right.
The juice isn't worth the squeeze.
In a scenario where it's basically a pick-em, I tend to side with the money. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's why I like Cejudo by decision. Mm-hmm. Brad, you're...
I feel like Moraes, he moves amazingly. He's so light on his feet at 35, and I think he might have enough strength in his frame to be able to stuff a few takedowns and work his way to... I know I said maybe a finish in the late rounds. Henry Cejudo's a damn hard man to finish by any means. And if it goes to decision, I wouldn't be surprised with that either. But the more I think about it, the more I can see Moraes moving and being able to hit Cejudo and his size and the difference there. So, that's why I would pick Moraes to maybe get a finish at the end.
Potentially a 4th or 5th round TKO.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so the one finish.
Yeah.
Us 3 decisions.
And that's just me kind of throwing that out there because I'm feeling it,
Okay. Yeah, sometimes momentum is, and where a fighter's at that moment is a big thing. Like we said, Moraes is coming off a 3-fight win streak. He's got the hot hand. He's got 3 performance of the nights in a row. So, this is there's not a better time for him to take this fight against Cejudo. So,
also, we have another title fight on the card. We have Valentina Shevchenko against Jessica Ai. Jessica Ai is on a 3-fight win streak. Leading up to this fight, Valentina Shevchenko obviously just won the title from Joanna Jędrzejczyk.
Mm-hmm. And Shevchenko in this fight is a huge favorite.
Yep.
They got her upwards around minus 1430, which is, you know, a pretty
Some of the
massive
highest we've
favorite.
seen. Yeah.
Jessica's coming in at a plus 745, plus 750. You know,
You have to think Jessica's got to have something new or do something really special to do something to stop Valentina Shevchenko.
well, just, I mean,
To get past her, to
I don't
do
mean to
anything.
necessarily go into the gambling side of this immediately, but this is MMA where almost anything can happen. I mean, we've seen some crazy things happen, even in boxing recently. You know, you look at this Ruiz and Anthony Joshua fight. You know what I mean? Nobody saw that coming. And
I mean, he
in
was a
combat sports, when you're
huge
punching
underdog.
people in the head, crazy shit happens. So,
Yeah.
any scenario where I'm getting plus 745 on a fighter in an MMA fight,
He's got it.
Enticed
like,
to put a little
you
bit of
know,
money on it. Yeah.
right?
for sure,
It's
for
very
sure.
enticing, and
I've
you know,
always been
yeah,
a fan of her as
Shevchenko
well.
is good. You know what I
Very
mean?
good, yeah.
But is she a dominant enough champion to warrant being that much of a favorite?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Jessica Ai might just have like a little bit of dog in her that Shevchenko might not have.
Look at that when Rose...
Like she might just have a little bit of grit that Shevchenko doesn't have. That might be the thing that wins her the fight, because I really don't see, honestly, and I really like Jessica Ai, I just don't see any other way that she's going to win that fight
Yeah.
than making it.
A
There's
dog
no
fight.
other way
Yeah.
than
And
making it
clipping
a
her.
dog fight.
She's got to
It's got to be a dog
back.
fight. It's
Early,
got to be.
yeah.
Early.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel like
exploded that bitch's ear, though.
she did. She did. But have we ever seen Shevchenko on roller skates after being clipped?
No, not even
And how
against
she
Amanda
deals with
Nunes.
that?
She's fought
Right.
Amanda Nunes
She doesn't
twice,
get-
and she didn't
Right.
really get hit.
So
Right. Yeah,
if
that's what I'm
Amanda
saying.
Nunes, who knocked out
Yeah.
Cyborg,
Can't do it.
can't do it,
That's why, I mean, I respect Valentina. She's
She's definitely gonna win.
yeah.
She's definitely gonna win.
I think
But-
she's going to win. I just think that
But
if
it
it's
wouldn't,
going to
it
happen,
wouldn't be crazy to throw a couple dollars on a 750
Yeah.
underdog.
Right.
Especially if you were working a parlay, maybe.
Exactly.
That wouldn't be hateful. I mean, that's some good ass money.
If Jessica Ai brought something interesting to the fight, besides she's got some really good boxing, I respect that. But
But
she
is
doesn't
it-
bring any
She
X
has a
factors.
little bit of wrestling, too.
Yeah.
well, look, I
for
mean,
sure, yeah.
But
Well,
you're
she's
right.
from Ohio.
look at Rose
great wrestling
Namajunas
state.
and
Trains
Joanna.
with,
You know, Joanna has got the striking pedigree behind her with all of the kickboxing and Muay Thai fights that she's had. And Rose is, granted, a fighter that's got good striking, but nobody really expected her to clip Joanna with that check left hook
Not at
and
all.
put her away like that.
Not at all.
You know what I mean? But it's when the threat of the takedown is there and we are
Just
in...
saying, I did pick Rose.
You did. You definitely did. You know what I mean? And that's not hateful at all. It was obviously a really smart pick. But when you're in MMA where the threat of the takedown is there and the
It-
threat
it can
of
completely
everything
change a
else
fight.
is there. Look at Conor versus Habib. We've seen...
It
Look
it
at-
ruins your confidence.
Yeah, look at Gokhan Saki against Khalil Roundtree. You've seen many
Yep.
occasions where a really high decorated pedigree striker has gotten into the MMA ring, and because of the whole gambit of what's going on, bang, gets clipped by a person that
Just
really has
for
no
you.
business landing a shot like that on them. And it changes the whole aspect of the fight. So,
Yeah, I mean that's always a big threat. If you get a guy who's too one-dimensional, too grappling focused, or too striking focused, you're gonna get a guy who at some point is gonna get put in a position where he has like a
Girl in this
pressure
case.
that he doesn't know how to deal with. Like if you get a guy like in Conor and Habib, Conor's an excellent striker. Obviously, his grappling's not even close to what Habib's is wrestling-wise or anything.
Mm-hmm.
So when he does get takedowns or threatens the takedowns, it's going to get in Conor's head, and he's not going to have the same confidence to throw a right hand.
that's why he got hit with that right hand.
Exactly.
Was the threat of the takedown.
It's
He
not-
would never got
yeah.
hit by that right hand had it not been for Habib's just overwhelming grappling prowess. And
And I
Conor
feel
being
like that's
so
why
worried about
Conor
that.
wasn't able to really hit him either.
Right.
Because
Mhm.
when you're so scared to step in and drill a guy in the face because you're scared to get taken down, you're not going to let that happen. If you know a guy is going to grab your leg and the possibility of him finishing it is like 99%, you're not going to throw with the same amount of confidence. Connor's not going to step through with that left cross, the same way he would have done to any other guy he's fought before. Right, exactly. Yeah. He wouldn't have done that to.
Do you think we have a
Eddie
scenario?
Alvarez? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do we think that there's a possible scenario with Valentina and Jessica that could
like do they cancel each other out? Like, how does that?
I honestly think that Valentina is more well-rounded and better in just about every aspect than Jessica I.
Absolutely,
Sure.
Maybe Jessica I has pure wrestling, but I'm pretty sure Valentina Shevchenko's from one of them stands or whatever where they wrestle all the time.
No, I agree. She's definitely a more well-rounded fighter.
When it comes back to my analysis of this fight, I don't have anybody that I'm pulling for. I like both of these chicks. I like Valentina. Exactly. But it comes back to this point. As a big underdog like Jessica I is, I hope she goes into this almost as if this is going to be the only chance she has at UFC Gold, where I hope she goes in there and only thinks about the things that she's capable of doing. I hope she doesn't look at Valentina as some kind of god, some kind of mystique. I hope she goes in there and does what she knows she can do and put her offense on the line, and whatever happens. If she gets knocked out, if she gets submitted, then that's the way it's going to be. But I hope she goes out on her shield because... And
I think that's the kind of fighter and the kind of fight Jessica I wants anyway.
Yeah.
She wants to be in your face and brawl.
Yeah, she for sure likes the dogfight.
Does anybody really think that Shevchenko possesses that mystique yet?
Well,
I'm not talking about Ronda, on her tear or...
Not for Jessica I. When she fought Joanna Jędrzejczyk, yes to Joanna because she has beaten Joanna. No, I'm saying Shevchenko has it for Joanna because in previous Muay Thai bouts.
I mean, they fought so often.
Shevchenko beat her like every time.
Yeah.
They fought like 4 times total, I think.
Yeah, it brings you like a certain confidence.
Sure, absolutely.
To be okay with letting loose more.
When you've got someone's number and you know it.
Right.
Yeah.
Shevchenko has that ability to get in someone's head with her abilities, I suppose is a way to put it. But I don't think she's reached the Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre, Demetrius Johnson, John Jones level of a mystique when you're in the cage with them.
You're fighting
that fucking guy.
You're fighting their aura as much as you're fighting them.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's like a thing, like, some guys just don't have the grit and, like...
To push through that.
They can't get, like, down and dirty when they need to. Like, you can be the most talented, technical person in the world, but if you get a guy who can wrestle and has a right hand, he could beat you just because he has like a grit to him and he's okay with getting knocked out. You know what I mean? Like Gaethje. Like Gaethje.
He's not going
like
away.
Imagine a guy like Gaethje.
Right.
Like he just maybe he's not the most technical all the time, but he doesn't give a fuck if you try to punch him in the face because he knows he hits harder than you.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get a situation like that and you're really confident, I feel like that can completely change how a fight goes.
Yeah, so, I mean, I agree with you, Nick. If I comes in with a good mentality that, she's not worried about Shevchenko's pedigree and what she's done and can clip her early, and that's the big thing.
Right,
When's the last time we saw Shevchenko's chin really tested?
Really never.
She's never been hit like that.
But in the end, what would your pick be, Nick?
As far as specific prediction, I would say... my money's on Valentina taking a 5-round decision if a finish comes. We've seen her. She's a very methodical fighter. She'll maybe score some takedowns here and there. If she gets a finish, it's going to be later in the fight, I believe, just because of... We've seen her armbar Juliana Pena, but with much more...
That's such a rare occurrence.
Much more at stake now with her being champion. I feel like she's almost going to be like a John Jones type where she takes control of the fight early and...
Do what you're good at.
Yeah, do what you're good at. She's going to take a 5-rounder or finish her very late in the fight.
Brock?
I completely agree with Nick, even though I was saying before, like, Jessica I might have the grit, might bring the dog fight. I just don't know if it will even be enough.
Right.
I just think Shevchenko is so refined and so technical that it might negate that. I think she will win 4th, 5th round TKO, or a decision is more likely, in my opinion.
Brad, any final thoughts on the pick?
I gotta agree with what everybody said. Valentina Shevchenko by decision is just the most likely outcome I can see. Jessica I did blow that bitch's ear up that one time.
Leslie Smith, right?
Yeah, Leslie Smith. I wasn't going to put her name out there because that's kind of rude.
I'm name dropping like an asshole.
But yeah, so she can hit, and she can hit hard. But unless she comes with a huge improvement, I don't see her being able to get Shevchenko out of there.
Yeah, and I'm with the bandwagon on this one. I think that Shevchenko will probably just edge her out almost every round, and I also think that she probably has a better gas tank than Jessica I.
Mm-hmm.
I could see I slowing down a lot in those 4th and 5th rounds. Nick, you're right about Shevchenko being a very methodical fighter. I think she manages her gas tank very well. She doesn't load up on shots.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? So she's still snapping stuff off in the 4th round. So there you have it. So moving on to what maybe should be the
people's main event.
The people's main event of this
obviously
card.
the people's main event, to steal Ariel Helwani's phrase, but Tony Ferguson versus Donald Cerrone.
Tony El Cucuy, the Mexican boogeyman himself, versus the Cowboy Cerrone. Woo!
El Cucuy versus the Cowboy. It's the things dreams are made of. The wet, sticky kind of dreams you wake up and clean up afterwards. There's fights that you can say there's no way for them to ever be boring. And then there's this fight.
Yeah. I love both guys. It's crazy. I have no idea who to root for. And these are two guys who I a lot of times do root for, even though I would definitely call myself more of a fan of MMA as a sport and just the sport and what hand-to-hand combat is, more so than individual guys.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I appreciate guys over some fighters over others because of how they've pushed the sport forward.
Right.
Obviously,
you start to gain
being a fan
for what
of
they've
football
done.
as opposed to being a fan of a team.
Yeah.
Being a fan of just MMA in general.
Yeah, well, I mean, here we are in Baltimore. We obviously have a home team that you can get behind. Mm-hmm. I have seen Donald Cowboy Cerrone train with my own eyes at Ground Control, and, it was pretty impressive. I've never seen somebody hit bags like that before. And I've watched Tony Ferguson since he was just a guy on Eddie Bravo's Mastering the System tapes. And then he was on The Ultimate Fighter. Mm-hmm. And now he's one of the greatest fighters in the world. Nick, I mean, what do you think is going to be the factor between two guys who are, I would say, almost dead even? And before you get into it, just to comment on how dead even they are right now, Tony's coming in at a minus 150 favorite, and Cowboys sitting at a plus 120 underdog, really close to a pick'em. What do you think could be some of the deciding factors in this, Nick?
I respect Cowboy Cerrone so much, and it's kind of funny that I say that because it seems like every fight I'm picking against him. I think the past 5 fights I've really picked against him, and even his return to lightweight, I wasn't buying the hype as many other people were, but he has definitely proved me wrong recently. What I will say about this, though, is what I've said before. I don't believe, and I say this with the utmost respect of Don Cerrone, I don't believe that he is meant to be a champion. I feel like he's always going to be the bottom of the top, if you get what I'm saying, where I feel like there's always going to be a guy better than him at 170 and at 155, and I do believe Ferguson is one of those guys. As far as what I think when I picture the fight, I think Cowboy gets hit a little too much for my liking. He always has. I think he always will. It's just part of who he is. And I feel like Ferguson's going to go in there and be able to crack him a couple times because we've seen a couple times in Ferguson's last fight was against Anthony Pettis, wasn't it?
Yeah. Anthony Pettis broke his hand going in, I think in the second round.
Third round, yep, going into the third.
The third.
On paper, Ferguson was not the striker in that fight. He was the grappler. And Pettis was the striker. Obviously, it's more complicated than that, especially how MMA is these days. But he went in there, and
dominated the fight.
And more importantly, he innovated the entire time. Doing the Bruce Lee trapping type stuff.
The Wing Chun dummy trapping
He
with the
impressed
elbows.
the
Only
hell out of me.
person that's ever pulled off any kung fu in the
Against
octagon.
one of the best strikers at lightweight. It was...
Well, look at the pivotal moment in the fight, and this is why, I always call Tony Ferguson a dog and a killer, and there's very few guys that I assign that designation to. I always talk about John Jones as a real killer. He's also, like Brock was talking about, with grit. When I watched John Jones' arm get hyperextended by Vitor Belfort, I knew that guy had fucking grit. And he's got just a level that not all people have. When he went into the 5th round against Alexander Gustafsson, he dug down to something that not a lot of people have. Tony Ferguson's got that. You look at one of the most pivotal moments, maybe the most pivotal moment of that Anthony Pettis fight between him and Tony Ferguson, is Anthony Pettis cracks Tony with a right hand and shakes him. And what does Tony do? He Granby rolls. He goes for
spinning back elbow.
He goes for a leg lock in the scramble. He
Perfect
handles
leg lock position,
yeah.
too.
He handles being cracked and
So
being
much different.
shook so much better than a lot of guys out there. And not only that, but when they settled down into position and Tony had Anthony Pettis in his guard and the scramble settled down, what were we left with? We were left with Tony Ferguson being able to collect himself,
I believe
and
he had the
Anthony
leg.
Pettis bleeding profusely from his head.
From the elbow.
From an elbow that just happened in there somewhere.
Well, I think so. I believe he gets cracked with the
So
right
who
hand.
ends up worse for wear in that
Exactly.
exchange?
So he's rocked, right? He's wobbled. He somehow decides he's going to throw a spinning elbow, cracks him. Anthony, I believe, tries to take the back. He Granby rolls. I might not agree with it, but clearly it worked. I
Goes
thought
for an
that
outside
was-
heel hook, it looked like.
Exactly. I thought it was pretty stupid in my opinion because he could have gotten laid on if the position was any different. He could have gotten laid on and smashed. But it worked, and it put him right into leg lock positioning. He had the leg
And damn,
laced.
Granby rolls aren't fun.
He had the leg laced. I believe he was going for like a heel hook or whatever leg lock he had. I don't remember.
Either
But, like,
way,
he ended
Anthony
up
Pettis
with
isn't throwing
control.
strikes.
Exactly, and
Because
he
he's
ended up with
defending.
control. He gets down in Tony's guard, and Tony just holds him until they eventually get back to their feet. But he was bleeding so bad onto Tony that they thought Tony was bleeding.
And the ref actually stopped to check the cut on his head after that was over. So you look at that exchange. You look at
really won?
Who really won that? Yeah,
Exactly.
Tony got shook, but Anthony walked away with this huge gash on his head, and now you have to deal with that for
and
the
he
rest
can't
of the
even
fight.
look. He's got to keep wiping his eyes. That's
Yeah,
how bad
and
it
it's
is.
that is the kind of chaos that Tony Ferguson creates. And he also is like the fucking Terminator. He does not stop coming at you.
No.
And
I mean,
don't
I like to
the
reference the
move
Kevin
of-
Lee fight.
Yeah, I don't like the move for Cowboy from 170 to now 155,
Yeah.
especially on short notice like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
been
agree.
less than 2 months, right?
Granted,
It's his second.
it's a 3-round fight, correct?
Yeah,
yes.
this is his second one back at 55.
Third
Right.
His
Third?
third in a row?
Alexander Hernandez and then Ally Quinta. And
Okay.
This is the
Yeah,
third.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there is something to say that Dad Cowboy seems kind of like a different guy for sure.
Well, I believe that not only is he fighting for his son now, but he's training with Joe Schilling.
Stitch him up, Joe Schilling.
And Joe Schilling has somehow, I believe, in my opinion, somehow Joe Schilling has been able to bring some new way of training, or he's done something that's made Cowboy physically and mentally a better fighter.
If Cowboy
We're
is
smoking
taking
cigarettes
steps
together.
backwards, he's going to lose the fight, I think.
I think
If they are circling each other and trading back and forth,
fuck
Cowboy's got a much better chance.
For
but I
sure.
picture Tony just coming right at him, like the way Nate Diaz did, like the way Rafael Dos Anjos did. And come right at Cowboy early, make it messy, elbows. I think the wrestling is maybe a wash.
They
Tony
both
might-
have really funky grappling.
They do.
And that's what, like,
They do.
if it goes to the ground, I gun to my head, I couldn't tell you, shoot me. I
wanna-
have no idea.
I would want to give the edge to Tony on the ground,
But Cowboy,
I am a staunch defender of Donald Cerrone's guard.
yeah,
Donald might be better off his back, but Tony might be better with the darces and the snap down
Yes,
and all that
right,
kind of
right.
game.
I don't even know if you compare better off his back. I think Cowboy's wrestling isn't as strong as his jiu-jitsu off of his back. Mm-hmm. But I think if you were to compare both of their games off of the back...
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Tony Ferguson triangle choked Kevin Lee.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's no small task.
And you also don't fight on the back to on the back. You know? So
it's one of those things where it's like really hard to actually compare them. Like both of their grappling styles are so different that you can't really put like a number on it or anything like that. But then on the feet, I do agree with Nick. I genuinely feel like Donald Cerrone gets hit way too much, and it's not to knock him. Like I'm a really big fan of both of these guys, and whoever wins, I'm going to be happy for him, and whoever loses, I'm going to be sad for him. But at the end of the day, I think Cerrone gets hit too much, and I feel like Tony might be able to pull out a late finish, whether that be grappling or like a TKO. I don't think he's going to straight flatline him. I don't think that's possible. But if it does happen, it's going to be a late stoppage, whether it's going to be, submission or TKO, or I could see a decision just because they could cancel each other out with weird striking and grappling. It's going to be a very interesting matchup. But in the end of the day, I think Tony will be able to edge the fight and get the victory.
There are two factors that, as someone who's picking Ferguson for this fight, there are two factors that really come to mind. As far as a technical standpoint, I wonder how he's going to respond to Cowboy's leg kicks.
Definitely. Because
he's fought Edson Barboza, and he did defeat him. I believe he did get piece up the leg kicks a little more.
He also, Anthony Pettis came at him hard with leg kicks in the first round.
Yeah, on the injured knee.
It
didn't affect him at all.
And it held up fine.
Exactly.
And now we have that much more extra time of him, healing it. And that's another thing is like, Tony, I don't know where Donald's mind is. I know that, he's got a son now, and he seems like he's got a new focus. We're all talking about Dad Cowboy now.
Dad Cowboy.
But we've known that Tony has a mentality that very few people have.
He was just born with it.
That injury that he had, people told him, 9 months, a year. And he's like, I'm going to get back in 4.
4 months.
And he said, go fuck yourself with your physical therapy. I'm going to do it on my own. And you see videos of him standing on like on a exercise ball with a sledgehammer in his hand, spinning it above his head, balancing himself. Like, the dude's crazy.
Yeah. It works.
But it works, and it works for him, and he might be that right type of crazy.
Yeah.
He seems like, Rogan's talked about this before, and I 100% agree with him that madness and excellence are two very close neighbors, and you kind of have to float between the two.
Yeah.
You have to be obsessed and a little bit crazy to be.
Yeah, and Tony definitely seems like that guy. Donald is, riding on dirt bikes and four-wheeling and snowboarding and doing all that stuff. Yeah, and he's having a great time, and he's a wild man.
Still cave diving, by the way.
Yeah, he's a wild man, and I love that. But he's taking a fight on short notice against a fucking killer.
But he's always done that.
You talk to Tony Ferguson, all he does, he's like, no, I don't have any hobbies. All I do is train. All I do is fight.
6 hours a day.
That dude's a madman, and he seems like, and Cowboys said it before in the past, like, UFC gold would be nice, but I'm in it for the money, basically. I'm just in it to fight.
He's taken that back recently and said he wants the gold.
He has, but Tony has always been after that strap. Yep. You know what I mean? And honestly, he's the only man I think that can beat Habib. And I think one of the ways that he beats him is
Kevin Lee.
If you're listening to this podcast, do yourself a favor. Do yourself a favor and go back and look at a picture of Tony Ferguson's last 5 opponents after the fight was over. They look like they got drugged behind a truck. And Tony, you're not going to get out of that fight with Tony unscathed. And can't think of a time where we've seen Cowboy Cerrone cut open and bleeding all over the place. Tony lives for that
That's
place.
my thing, Zach, is that every time he gets hurt, it's over. Against Dos Anjos, he gets hit, it's over. Darren Till, he gets hit, it's over.
If he gets wobbled,
Melvin Gillard,
he can't respond.
He fucked Melvin Gillard
Absolutely.
up afterwards. It used to be he got hit, and then he woke up.
Yeah.
But he got older, and he found out that getting hit part isn't working for him anymore.
We don't see Cowboy in wars. We don't. If he gets hit, it's over. Masvidal cracked him. It's over. It's every time he gets hit, it's over. So that's what we're gonna see. We're gonna see what Cowboy Cerrone's made of against Tony Ferguson, because, like you said, you see his opponents look like they got dragged out back and cut up by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It's awful.
So,
and fighting from adversity like that with a cut open forehead and blood in your face.
Not many guys are good at that.
Not very many guys are good at it. And that's why I think that Tony could potentially beat Khabib that way. We've always seen Khabib as the hammer and never as the nail.
Never had to face adversity. Even in the Al Quinta fight, I think Al outstruck him.
Yes.
And Al was able to hold off most of the grappling exchanges.
Mm-hmm.
But Khabib, for the most part, was still in control. I'm sure we could all agree with that.
Yes.
I'm not one of the people that are crazy enough to say, like, oh, Al won that fight. You know, I don't believe that Al won that fight. Because look at his face afterwards. But Khabib's never by anybody. No one's ever gotten close to rocking him.
Michael Johnson.
Grappling him.
Yeah, he shook him a little bit, but he beat the
yeah.
fuck out of him for the rest of the fight.
Yeah, Michael Johnson did. He's was
never had
able
to,
but
Khabib's never had a come from behind victory.
No. Yes, Michael Johnson did wobble him and maybe like for a second,
but he still didn't
startle
lose the
him.
round.
Yeah,
but
he
still won the
Khabib-
round though.
he hasn't lost.
Then
it
Khabib
wasn't,
wrestled.
enough. It
Then
was not
Khabib
enough.
wrestled
Right.
because Khabib was trying to.
But then
work
that
his
makes you
boxing.
think. That makes you think. What happens if Khabib tries to do what he's done to everybody to Tony? Because Tony doesn't respond at
For
all
example,
like anyone.
what we were
ever.
talking about with Tony and Anthony Pettis and how Anthony Pettis hurt Tony, but in the end ended up kind of on the losing side of the exchange because of the cut. What happens when Khabib wins the takedown exchange and gets Tony down, but then Tony pulls rubber guard or high guard and starts slicing Khabib open with elbows?
And he does that.
It's a
huge possibility.
And here's another thing.
What happens
Tony's
then?
not afraid of being taken down. He's
At all.
never been
He
afraid of
invites
being
it.
taken.
No, he
Oh.
jumps to rubber guard as you take him down.
If you try to single leg him, he just goes, "Okay, cool. I guess we're fighting off my back now." He's everyone who's ever fought Khabib has been on. They've just been backpedaling,
Right.
trying to not get
Trying
taken
to
down.
get up.
Michael Johnson,
Instead of trying to
clearly,
attack.
exactly. Michael Johnson, clearly a better striker in every form, way better than Khabib.
Way more athletic
But-
and explosive.
But the fear of being taken down negates that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a big problem with a lot of people. And Michael Johnson's not a bad wrestler or anything like that.
But I
when
think-
you're a
but-
boxer,
I feel like
Let's roll back to that, 'cause something I want to touch on that with. How was Khabib able to hold Johnson down like that?
superior grappling.
Specifically, though, was with a over-under, and on the under, he had wrist control.
Yeah.
And he kept pulling out Michael Johnson's post and hitting him. And
Yeah.
Johnson's trying to block with the left hand and post with the right, and
you
he
can't.
continues to pull it out. Tony is not going to get trapped there.
No.
Tony will know how to break wrist control, to pummel,
Exactly.
to get back to guard, to get back on the offense and stuff like that. He's not going to get, you look at some of the guys that Khabib has out-wrestled. And who are they? The best wrestler that the best grappler that Khabib's ever come up against is who?
Al.
Al or Rafael Dos Anjos.
Yeah, Dos Anjos would be
You know,
nice.
Dos
for
Anjos
sure.
is a black belt in
Yeah, I
jiu-jitsu, sure, but he got ragdolled in that fight
Yeah.
by Khabib.
and then he started doing steroids.
And then, and Al is a pretty good wrestler, and like you said, was able to hold Khabib off.
I mean, that's Matt Serra Jiu-Jitsu 101 is Al Iaquinta.
Right, but let's not kid ourselves and say that Michael Johnson's got any type of wrestling, or
No,
Edson
I mean,
Barbosa's got any type of wrestling,
compared to another
or Conor
boxer-
McGregor has got any type of
That's the
wrestling.
thing.
These are the
No.
best victories that Khabib has.
People want to clown Conor McGregor, and I absolutely understand that because he talks a lot of shit, but to this day, that is Khabib's biggest win. Think about that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor is Khabib's biggest win of his 28, 29 fight
27.
career. 27. So think
He's
about
picked
that.
his opponents very wisely.
Yeah, he
Yes,
he has not been very tested up to this point. I'm not saying he hasn't beat top contenders. Obviously, he's beaten
beaten
top
3
5.
of them.
Yeah, he's beaten the top guys. But what I'm saying is,
But he hasn't fought, what I mean, though, with his choosing his fights wisely is, you look at a fighter who might not be the caliber fighter of, let's say Eddie Alvarez, for example.
Eddie Alvarez is who I wanted to bring up.
Who obviously is not the caliber of fighter that Conor McGregor is. We've seen the result of that fight. But has a skill set
that can match up better with Khabib.
that could match up better with Khabib. Habib fights strikers.
I
and he
wanted
puts
to
them down
see
and
that
bullies
fight.
them.
I wanted to see the Eddie Alvarez fight, like I want to see the Kevin Lee fight. I feel like they have a wrestling skill set that will make at least a new interesting dynamic to a Khabib fight.
Well,
and they hit hard.
The only thing that scares
yeah,
me with the Kevin Lee fight, I don't think Kevin Lee has the conditioning to keep up with Khabib.
That's the other
Kevin Lee needs
and
a
that's
real
why
camp
I
again.
would come back circle around to Tony.
Yeah.
He's the only man that I think can really do it because
I don't
he's
know
got a
if
gas
anybody
tank for
beats
days.
Khabib. I don't know if anybody beats Khabib Nurmagomedov, Zach, but I absolutely 100% agree with you. If there's one man on this planet that can do it, it is Tony Ferguson.
Yeah, nothing's for sure.
And that is
obviously.
why that circles back to my prediction. I don't think he loses to anybody besides Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Yeah.
I think he finishes Cowboy Cerrone.
When you kind of had that trifecta that going there for a second of Khabib, Tony, and Conor,
Yeah.
I looked at Tony as the guy who could beat either guy.
Yeah,
I agree.
for sure.
You know what I mean? I thought that in the Conor Khabib fight, it would be one-sided. You know what I mean? And it pretty much was.
It was
We saw,
either going to get dominated on the feet
Right.
or on the ground.
right. And, we saw Khabib dominate, obviously, and win via submission. And win via, with his wrestling. For
And look,
sure.
you can
You
even
guys
say that
know
about
how
Conor.
long ago it was the last time Tony Ferguson lost a fight?
Michael Johnson, that was his one loss, right?
7 years ago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was right off of the Ultimate Fighter, I believe.
It
And
was-
he broke his arm in the fight.
It was like 2 or 3 fights off the
Yeah,
Ultimate
that
Fighter.
dude-
Yeah.
That dude's got no quit in him. So I could see him very well. My pick this fight is Tony Ferguson by TKO. I'm thinking first, I would say probably either first or third round. It's either going to
Right.
happen quick
Or right
because,
at the end.
people like to
Yeah.
blitz Cerrone. Granted, Cerrone has kind of added that check knee.
He's definitely gotten better at
and-
handling that.
And handling that.
He starts
Um,
a little bit faster than he used to.
but
He's still not a
he
first round
doesn't
guy.
deal well with injury.
No.
And I don't like the short turnaround.
He's
Especially
always
against a guy
done
like
it, though.
Tony.
He's always
You know,
done it, though.
He
He's
has.
taken 2 weeks.
He
no,
has, and he's
4
never been
weeks.
champion.
No, I agree.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Think about that. He's always done it, sure. And sometimes he looks great, but then he'll be on these little runs, and then
And then
bang,
he'll
he runs
lose.
into a wall.
Yep.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Every
A
time
wall
it's a
that
top
is-
guy. I don't mean it
That's
gets
what
respect to
happens.
Cowboy.
Yeah. I mean, he beats everybody he needs to beat in the fashion he needs to beat them to get to the fight that's going to get him a
I'm
title
sorry,
shot.
but I think Tony
and he can't
Ferguson
do it.
is a guy who demands the respect of a full camp.
Yeah.
And film breakdown and study of technique and a game plan and all those things. I don't see Tony as a guy who, I'm going to come in short notice and just do my thing, and my thing is going to be enough to beat that guy. You know what I mean? With a game plan behind it and some film study of what Tony's really bringing, yeah, maybe. But, what are you getting done in 3 weeks, really? You
You're
know what
getting
I mean?
ready.
You're getting ready, yeah, but
You're getting in shape. That's all you're doing in 3 weeks. is
Sure.
You're getting in shape.
sure.
You're cutting weight and you're getting your conditioning back. That's all you can do in 3 weeks, realistically. Yeah, you're still training, but your training is more focused on you losing weight and getting cardio. That's all you can do in 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. So, final musings and picks, Nick?
I'm taking Ferguson by second or third round TKO after putting a beating on Cowboy.
Yeah. You think it's very one-sided? You think he comes at him and just puts the
I
pressure on
think
him?
Cowboy might be able to chew him up with some leg kicks, but if I had to make a true prediction, I think Ferguson gets to him early, and it's going to be a typical Cowboy loss where he just dwindles.
Right.
gets shut down.
Just doesn't
Yeah.
show up.
Yeah.
I believe Tony shuts him down, or if we continue to see this new mentality out of Cerrone and he doesn't necessarily get rocked and shut down like he does, and that's always what he's done. He gets rocked and he covers up and drops to his knees and gets finished from there. But if he can weather that and they could have a good overall fight, I wouldn't be totally surprised by a decision in Tony's favor, but still a decision. But more realistically, I would go with like an earlier stoppage, just out of chaos of the fight, with Tony coming out on top because of how they fight.
I think we're in for a fucking war, boys.
Yeah.
I think if you could bet on what was going to be the fight of the night and the fight of the year, my money would be all on this fight. I think Cowboy, if he comes in with his mindset the way he has the last few fights, is going to be as prepared as he's ever been to fight a wood chipper like Tony Ferguson. I forget what I said on our breakdown, but I think I'm going with a late sub from Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to beat up Cowboy. He's going to get him a little bit bloody, and in that third round, he's going to find that Darce or something there.
I could see that because Cowboy, definitely tries to implement the wrestling. And
Yes.
that is the type of move that you get caught in on the way in.
Yeah, I mean, look at how many guys in the last year. I mean, it's not like a crazy number, but how many times have we seen a guy go for a single leg and get Darce choked?
Yeah.
Or Anaconda choked?
Mm-hmm.
It's happened probably a handful of times, and it's kind of what you used to consider that rare. It happened once a year, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But these guys are starting to get really good at maybe not sprawling off a takedown, but turning it into a guillotine, an anaconda.
Mm-hmm.
They're just really, they're capitalizing on someone else's wrestling ability.
Right.
And it's starting to really, like,
Yeah, I mean,
progress.
the game is always evolving, for sure. I'm going to go with Tony. I think it's going to be a TKO. I see him clipping Donald with something in a, and maybe even taking one to give one. You know what I mean? For sure, I could see that happening. Tony...
They both do that. They both are
Right,
okay
yes.
with...
And I think that Tony deals with it better, though.
Yes.
If it goes the distance, I also like Tony a little bit more. Because, if a cut occurs, the longer the fight goes on, the harder it becomes for you to deal with it. So, yeah,
Tony's he's well adverse in being the underdog, in being cut up, in being
He's been in
bloody
every type
and
of fight.
bruised, and exactly, yeah, he's
No
been
doubt.
in technical fights, he's been in dog
So
fights.
is
he's
Cerrone,
been-
though. So is Cerrone.
For sure, but I feel like he's never been able to quite weather the storm as well, or like he can't, like I believe Nick was saying, like he can't handle the adversity as well, and it's like it's always been the one crutch of his.
Yeah.
If there's anything, that's always been the
Man
thing.
was trapped in a cave underground. He couldn't see.
No, I mean...
He was running out of air, man. I think he can handle some fucking adversity.
Well,
I
he
know
doesn't
what Nick
fight.
means,
He doesn't,
but
it's not adversity as much as injury, I guess. Like, we've
Yes.
seen...
Injury, I guess.
cracked.
We've
Yeah.
seen Donald get hurt and crumble, whereas we've seen Tony get hurt and rally.
yes.
You know what I mean?
Donald's never come back, or at least from what I can remember, from getting rocked.
Not in a long time.
Does Donald have any comeback wins?
Melvin Gillard, off the
Yeah,
top of my head.
that's the biggest
Melvin
one.
one.
Probably
rocks
the
him.
only one.
That's the
I-
one.
But that was
that
Cowboys'
was
MO
8
for a
years
little
ago.
bit.
That
It
was
was
how
a
long
while
ago?
ago
Yeah.
for sure. But that was Cowboys' MO for a while. But yeah, we all like Tony Ferguson to win a fucking barn burner of a
I
fight.
hate the pick though. I'm gonna be very sad for whoever loses and very
100%.
happy for whoever wins.
Yes.
Because I see benefits to both guys winning, and I'm
Sure.
I've loved both of them for years. I've been a
Yeah.
huge.
I'm
huge
sorry,
fan of
though.
both of them.
I'll be honest. Now that I think about it, because of the repercussions that this fight has, I want Tony to win.
I need Tony to win.
I
because
need
he's gotta
Tony to
fight
win
because the
because
winner
I
is going to fight
absolutely
Habib.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
Habib or Dustin. Let's say Dustin wins.
And
that's another
let's
thing
not
that
count
we-
Dustin out in that fight.
I agree.
Against Habib?
Yeah.
It's not a foregone
Is
conclusion.
that fight signed?
Yeah.
And done?
It's
It's about to be.
No, it's
because-
finalized.
Real quick,
Well, yeah.
though, before we get on the subject
let's
of
run before we
Habib a
do
little bit
Dustin
more,
and Khabib. Let's run down the rest of this card.
let's
Real quick,
just touch
just
on
picks.
something that we wanted to touch on. Nick and I were discussing something that is of a lot of value.
I might have a little bit of a parlay put together for you.
Yeah,
guys if
it
you
might.
want.
It's a good value pick, and that's Jimmy Rivera. Jimmy Rivera right now is coming in at a plus 270 underdog, and Nick and I both agree that is smart money for sure.
Yeah.
This is kind of a scenario where Jimmy Manuwa, it should probably be a pick'em, or Jimmy Manuwa.
Jimmy Rivera.
Rivera, I keep saying Manuwa. I'm sorry, Jimmy Rivera. It should be a pick'em with him, or maybe even being a slight favorite. But the fact that he's a 270 underdog, that is, if you're trying to set up a parlay or looking for smart money, I like that a lot.
Yeah, with Peter Yan, his most recent and most impressive win was against John Dodson. That is a man that Jimmy Rivera has beaten before. And I feel like Jimmy Rivera is a very established top contender. He's beaten some high-class names in the bantamweight division. So I just think he's going to win. Even if I didn't have to look at odds, I think Jimmy Rivera is going to win. So that is my value pick of 238.
And if you're looking for a parlay from a barely informed gambler, you've got Jimmy Rivera, who's coming in as an underdog. Also, Aljamain Sterling coming in at a slight underdog. You could throw those two fights together, and if you're feeling a little bit froggy, throw Tatiana Suarez, who is a big favorite for a safe pick to throw a 3-fight parlay
Generally,
there.
what you want to try and do is, kind of even out the money if you got a big favorite.
They're the big favorite with the 2 underdogs that we like. So that's our preview for UFC 238. Until next time, we will see you on the mats.